Now, when I play guitar on the YouTube here, I'm generally asked two really common questions. And today on Cryptic Mass Guitar, I'm going to try and help you with one of them. So the first one that I get is it good for high gain? The second one is, can you play AC/DC with it? And to be honest, I'm going to help you with that one too. That's your amp. I mean, set of humbuckers? Sure. An SG, thinner body than a Les Paul, less body in the sound, little thinner, a little more mid, a little more top end, cuts through a little more. But it's your amp. But today we'll take a look at the Gibson USA SG Standard 61 with Maestro Vibrola. We'll find out if it's any good for high gain. Now, I don't want this long and drawn out thing here. I just want to get through and try to help you guys, because really I get asked those questions all the time. Apparently, some people like my responses. So I've got three sections. Section number one, 2 sound samples, DADGAD in C with a lead, E standard with a harmony section and a lead. A little bit too much low end on the Mark IV. I followed a suggested setting from one of you guys, and it's a me thing. I think it was a great setting. I just think I had a little too much low end. It's my fault. Number 2, 1 riff with 12 different amp heads. That way it kind of covers things for you guys, because I usually get the, why didn't you use this amp? Why didn't you use that amp? And section number 3 is 1 riff with 6 different 4x12 cabinets. They're real cabinets. I don't get along with IRs. I like to play loud. I like to feel what I'm playing. Kind of helps me with the energy thing. So let's get started with section number 1, and that is 2 full-on sound samples. It's under 4 minutes for both of them together. you probably heard there's a little bit too much low end in that E standard one. And I made sure to use this. We'll get to that afterwards. So for section 2 here, and you can comment and say, hey, I have that amp. I wish I had that amp. That's the amp that I want. Thank you for using that amp. Why did you use that amp? Kind of thing. That's totally cool. But I want to play one riff with 12 different amp heads. It might be a little too much of hearing the same riff over and over, but it helps me cover some ground for you guys, and it helps you with, you know, if you want to buy this guitar and you have that certain amp, now you've heard it. Section 3 here, we cut that in half. It's not 12, but it's 6 different cabinets. They're 4x12 cabinets with different speakers in them. They are not IRs. I don't use them. I've never gotten along with them. When I grew up, I tried to play as loud as I could, and part of the way that I learned to play guitar was to actually feel what I'm playing. So I'm using a Neumann TLM 107. Also, by the way, rather than like the usual suspects, an i5, an SM57, or an E609, I have those microphones, not a problem. But a long time ago, I did a shootout with like 30, 35, 37 probably, different microphones. And the Neumann TLM 107, to me, accurately captured what I was hearing in the room from the cabinet itself. Oftentimes with the SM57, it kind of comes across, to me, as a little nasally. And by that, I mean, it sort of has this synthetic low end. That doesn't usually matter because, if you're playing in a full mix, Your low end's covered by the kick and the bass. But it just seems like it has a little too much of mid and a little too much high end. The Neumann TLM 107 to me resolves that problem because I don't want to pick up a bass and play bass tracks along with everything. That kind of helps me as well. So that's, you're not going to hear any more guitar playing here. But there's 3 questions that, for most guitars, well, 2 usually, but 3 for this guitar that I know I'm going to get asked in the comments. If people actually watch this video, who knows, who cares? But number 1, the pickups. These are the 61R and 61T. They changed the name to 60s burst buckers. They're a little bit hotter than the regular burst buckers. There's a little more emphasis on the low end, a little more emphasis on the high end. It's not scooped by any means. But when it's a hotter pickup than something that's, a little more flat, there's not really a lot of pickups out there that have a completely flat response. A little more dialed back kind of thing. But when it's a hotter pickup and there's a little more emphasis on certain frequencies, it means you're just going to adjust that on your amp. You're going to adjust that on your amp for just about any different pickup that you're using. So it's not out of the ordinary, but hotter, and they have a low-end focus and a high-end focus. We have a gloss nitro finished mahogany neck here. It is a slim taper. There's a school of thought out there that slim taper necks promote hand fatigue. So I can kind of see it, but at the same time, I've never really experienced it. I am someone that likes thicker necks. Okay, so the regular SG standard, the one that has the bat wing rather than the single pick guard, that one has the rounded C profile, or the rounded profile actually. A lot of people say that that's a 50s neck. No. If you try that and then go and grab a chunky C, a 50s chunky C, there's a lot more girth in there. If you grabbed my 56 VOS with that chunky C on there, there's a lot more girth on that one than a normal chunky C. That one there is the baseball bat. But the slim taper here, very comfortable neck. It's not as thin as like a Wizard, or they have numbers for Wizard necks, right? The Ibanez necks. It's not that thin. But it is very comfortable to play and comfortable for long periods of time. Now, this thing. This confuses people because it's not a Floyd Rose. But you see an SG in the store when it has one of these things. First thing that most people do is they go, and they bring it back and they start to go, hey, one of those strings slightly went out of tune. This thing sucks. Yeah, this is no good. Won't stay in tune at all. It will, if you use it the way that it was intended. So this was like a 50s, 60s design. not an 80s design. Okay, this is the SG Standard 61, not the SG Standard 82. Good year. So with that being said, this is what it's meant for. Gingerly rocking it back and forwards, a little bit of shimmer and jangle and shine in your playing. Not. But I purposefully use this sort of like a Floyd Rose. Not really, but sort of like a Floyd Rose in the E Standard sound sample. I did that purposefully because I wanted you to be able to hear, yes, you can do it. However, what ends up happening is, so once I have this perfectly in tune, I tug on my strings, I tune up to pitch, never down to pitch. If you tune down to pitch, don't tug on your strings to kind of, reset everything here and pull tension on around the tuning post. What ends up happening is when you start bending or jiggling, things go flat. Right? Makes sense. So keep tension, tune up to pitch. When I do that, I can play that particular lead 3 times. After 3 times, things start to go a little warbly. Okay, so even in that one, because that was the 3rd take, but even in that one, you started to hear these 3 strings here were a little out. Not crazy, but a little out. Okay, what ends up happening, because you're rocking this back and forth to get that effect, this, even though it's very solid, very rigid, good word, it's not designed to be reefed on, so it's not going to go, it has a better chance than something like a Jazzmaster, but it's not going to always go perfectly back into the place if you're doing this instead of that, right? So it starts to go 1 string sharp, 1 string flat, and it's sort of a little, not all over the place. It does not, again, not like a Jazzmaster, where if you're reefing on a Jazzmaster one, everything's out of tune. So it just slightly starts to go out of tune. It'll be noticeable after a while if you're being a goof with this thing. My recommendation, if you want to use it like that, live, where you're not taking alternate takes, where you can retune, do it at the end of a song. If you have a lead that ends the song, perfect, because you'll be up there playing this. Who cares if it goes out of tune slightly over time, right? Because you're doing the thingy. No one will really notice, except for the one guy in the back going like, check your intonation. I need to tell everybody, I play guitar, eh? I play guitar. Did you check his intonation? He's out of tune. Other than that guy in the back, everyone's going to be like, hey, that's not usually on one of those guitars. That's really cool. It'll work for you. It's great. Also, this does not get in the way. If for some reason you do find it's in the way, you flick it down here. That looks weird though. SGs were designed to have this on it. Not particularly this, actually was the sideways one. But when you hear about people talk about neck dive, it's usually because they're using a nylon strap rather than a leather strap. But it's because there's supposed to be this added weight to the body. If you don't like this, but you want that added weight, what a lot of people do is they actually just take it out. It's 1 screw. You take the screw out, take this out, you're good to go. That's how things work. The AC/DC thing, I'll forever be asked that. I'm not even a fan of AC/DC. I know it's illegal. I play guitar. The weird thing is, I just never got into them. Never. I have no idea. I heard Metallica, Nirvana, Pantera, and then I just was like, AC/DC's a band. I don't know. I don't think they suck or anything like that. I just never got into them. When I hear them on the radio, I listen to the drums rather than the guitar. I don't know why. I think it's like there's a standard nice beat. I think that's why. But the AC/DC thing, it's your amp. It's your amp. Get a set of humbuckers and a guitar. That'll make things a little easier, but it's your amp. And even then, there's pedals. You grab like a tube screamer and an EQ pedal. That usually fixes any cheap tube amp, right? But it's your amp. Again, thinner body on the SG than a Les Paul, because most people will be looking at like Les Pauls or SGs or Telecasters or an Ibanez or a Stratocaster. But in the world of SG versus Les Paul, which are very common guitars, thinner body than a Les Paul, that translates into less wood. So there's a little less body, which helps you out for that AC/DC type tone, because there's a little more mid and high mids here and treble, and that kind of helps you cut through the mix a little more. It doesn't mean with a Les Paul you can't play AC/DC, because holy crap, you can. Let the AC/DC thing go. Thanks for watching.